worried about me.
It started.
Hello to all you Patriots out. Oh my goodness.
What's wrong?
I thought Dave got it out, and then hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 380 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the #1 live podcast in Canada. We're recording on January 16th, 2023.
We need your help to support the Canadian Patriot Podcast. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage. Follow the link on the right.
This brings us to what used to be my favorite segment. Now it's the boring segment. This is what are we drinking? And what have you recently completed on the Patriot Challenge? As is tradition, we will start with Liz. Liz, what are you drinking?
I am drinking kombucha today. Well, there we go.
Sounds ethnic.
I couldn't tell you, but I think it's Eastern.
Do you have
Essentially,
lots
it's
of it?
fermented tea. It's just fermented tea.
How do you
it's really
ferment
good.
tea?
With what's called a SCOBY, which is kind of like this disgusting looking, mushroomy looking thing. And it's really healthy for your gut biome. And it's kind of, which kind of also gives it, like, you see these bubbles, kind of a little carbonation.
Carbonation? But
of
is it
sorts.
alcoholic?
No. I mean,
Oh.
you can go to the Lickbo and they will, they've like alcoholized some kombucha.
Oh.
But
It sounded
we're-
alcoholic. The name sounds alcoholic. Sounds like
It is.
Well, it's
Zambuca.
fermented. It's got to have. Well, I mean, I guess unless all the
No,
sugar gets
'cause you can-
metabolized into.
It does. It gets eaten by the SCOBY. The sugar gets eaten by the SCOBY. It's a
Huh.
thing.
Sure.
It's good. It's kind of tangy. Okay. Something that you guys need to try sometime, obviously.
Guess we're having haggis and kombucha.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Okay. Here we go. The cooking show we talked about last week. Something off the Patriot Challenge. I feel like I've done quite a few things off the Patriot Challenge. So last week, we're still on this like winter camping kick where we're testing out our gear, checking things out. And that's actually pretty cool, learning a lot about, you know, what works, what doesn't work, that sort of thing. So that seems to be a pretty cool thing. I'm always learning something, so I don't know. I didn't get all my steps in. I'm kind of shit at the Patriot Challenge. I'm just gonna own that.
Hey,
There
at
you
least
go.
if there's an effort, then it's better than, like I said this to Andrew the other day. If there's effort there, you're still doing like better than probably 90% of the population.
I
It's-
agree.
I find really hard to do all of the things, which is deceptive
Yes.
given that it's like do 5 things. And it's like, if you math out the time, I think it's like an hour and a half worth of stuff.
That's like not a lot. That's a lot of time during the week when you're busy doing life.
Yeah, and like sometimes
Dave,
the
that's
mental
90 minutes
energy-
of not watching Seinfeld reruns. You can carve out some time in your day for that.
But
Fair.
you got to remember though that there's a lot of intention that actually goes behind that stuff, and that's what takes up the most time. Like you have to prepare to exercise. You have to, you know, and that sounds ridiculous, but you're not just like, oh hey, I'm gonna go right from the office to go like run a mile.
Yeah, like you have to
You
get.
know,
Yeah, you got to
you
bring
have
your
to-
gym shoes and your change of
like there's
clothes.
preparation involved in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like turnaround time for that and stuff like that. So but either way, yep, all that stuff is, yeah. Anyways, Dave, gonna go to you next.
I'm drinking water because I'm also trying to be a good roommate and not drink a lot of alcohol, especially during the week is my main thing. Had a few beers on the weekend, but definitely trying to stop the casual drinking during the week. So that's been going pretty good. I just had some beers on Saturday. Other than that, it's been good. So drinking water tonight.
That sounds terrible.
And trying to get back into lifting some weights, trying to get that to be more of a regular thing. Had a few workouts so far, but want to get it to be more like a 3 to 4 times a week kind of thing. And yeah, just get back into somewhat reasonable shape before the summer gets here.
Fair. I feel you on that.
It's Monday, it's chest day, bro.
I mean,
Just say. You
Pierre?
have to pass the baton.
Yeah.
I'm drinking whiskey.
Oh boy.
good
Somebody
man.
has to be drinking for us.
Every
Yeah,
time.
I knew that, so I had a few beforehand too. And then thanks to a bunch of help and support from the panelists and the group chat, improving our position at a later date with a purchase that is on the way to hopefully try out a few things this summer. Want to try and get out to a match or two. Hopefully, it'd be nice to get to all of them, but try out a match here and there. Try out something new that we've been wanting to do for a while. So
Yep.
I'm
Excellent.
excited to put it all together, try them out. What about you, Andrew?
I am continuing to drink water. It is day 16 of 75 hard, or as I like to call it, only 60 more days of sobriety.
Sounds
Only
like
2
captain's
more
log.
months.
Sounds like your captain's log and you're in the middle of space and you're lost and it's dark. And
Well,
All
I
of those things.
it
sounds
feels
like.
remarkably like that.
Yeah.
I have to say, not really a big fan of sobriety, but you know what? Drinking all my water, I'm probably going to have to go to the washroom soon. I have my last 100 milliliters in my water bottle here to finish during the show. Wet my whistle while we're talking. I am checking all of the things off on the Patriot Challenge because the Patriot Challenge overlaps heavily with 75 hard, and then some. But getting through all my stuff in terms of improving my fighting position, or maybe it's practicing a skill. I'm not really. It's all of the above. I had the opportunity to take a new shooter to the range on the weekend. I have
Nice.
a coworker with a teenage daughter that's interested or playing with the idea maybe of getting into competitive rifle shooting, or at least rifle shooting, and has agreed to come and check out a outlaw precision rimfire match in the nicer weather. So this was her second time coming out shooting. She's been out with me once before, and we've shot the 22, and this week we moved up to real rifles and shot the 308 and shot a 9mm carbine and shot some handguns. So
Nice.
made for
Yeah,
an
fun.
expensive day for her dad, but I enjoyed myself. I got to show off some firearms in the collection and impart some shooting knowledge on the next generation, which was great. And
shoot all those
since I
new guns that you have.
had gone to the range, I also brought several Mausers with me to shoot because I collect milsurps now.
Yeah, apparently.
I have to build more
I don't even know
shells.
whatever. I have many targets that I have recorded for posterity of Mausers that I will be working on over the coming months or years until they too are banned.
Yeah. If we can get the definitions right.
It
Well,
doesn't matter.
when-
They seem to be starting in PEI anyway, regardless of the definitions. So
I think that went over like a fart in church from the sounds of things. I think it's already been kiboshed and denied and whatnot. So
Yeah, I'm going to put a
Safe
little
for a
quick
while.
note in here to follow, or like to continue that part of the conversation when we get into the news with the C21 stuff. But let's put a note in there on the PEI thing. If people want to do the Patriot Challenge thing, best place to find the information for that is on our website, CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. And there's a tab there at the top. It's called Patriot Challenge. You can download the template, share it with your friends or enemies. Remember, There are two wolves inside of you. One is OPSEC and PERSEC. The other is posting the Canadian Patriot Podcast Challenge directly on the CSIS Facebook page.
Way to
If you
mutilate
tag,
that.
if you're a listener and you take the podcast challenge and post it on government social media, I will send you, first person to do it gets a free t-shirt. First person to do it
I'm
and
doing
email
right
me.
now.
Yeah, free t-shirt. Pierre, prepare to make a t-shirt.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I was like, I'm in on it, but I was like, well, I can just make my own. But then I don't have Facebook. Do they have an Instagram?
I don't know.
I gotta figure out how to
what I'm
post.
saying is taunt the government, but like legally and with due process.
Yes.
Okay. Is that okay. Okay.
So once you've taunted the government, Liz, what should they do?
What should the government do?
No,
what
what
the
should our
person
listeners
should-
do? The government should probably not do very much at all.
Government should
but
fuck
we'll
off,
Get
but
to
yes.
that.
So here's the gig. If the government has social media, whatever is on social media, they don't give two shits about. It's social media. Like the actual people that
Yeah, well, the scum of the earth is on social media, so what do they
Yeah.
care?
yeah, it's true. I don't even think that CSIS does have its own Facebook page.
Yeah, I think I've seen.
How
them
could they not?
before.
I mean,
How would they
I-
let people know when there's problems that need to be worried about, and if there's
I
like
don't
a
think you can
large terrorist
post-
attack?
That's Twitter. That's Twitter, buddy.
I don't think that you can post
is she
on
on?
it. That's the problem. No, I'm on Facebook right now.
Oh, you're on Facebook.
But do you know how many people follow them? 5,000.
5,000.
That's 5,000 potential new listeners,
5,000.
plus
Yeah.
whoever works at CSIS that doesn't currently listen.
So the problem is though, I can mention them though. What is their
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what you should do. Is you should that's the gig, folks. You got to
Taunt the government.
Well, but what you have to do is you have to complete the Patriot Challenge and post it on your own social media and tag, like, spam CSIS doing that, because it'll still show up even if you can't post on their pages, because you can't. They're smart that way. But they still get notified when you tag them and shit. So
All right, first person to get banned by CSIS.
yeah, that's good. I like that. Gets a
Shadow
t-shirt
ban
like
for
Pierre.
ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's the worst that's going to happen is that you're going to be able to start like a fan club with all the other people that are doing it. You're going
Don't
to
worry,
meet
we
other
have personal
people.
experience. They won't be able to find your house. They're terrible at it. They'll be in the wrong province, the wrong county, the wrong everything, because they're terrible at their jobs.
That's fair. I mean, if they haven't banned us from social media, personally, if they haven't banned me from social media after being on this podcast, I'm going to have to do some pretty crazy shit. Like, I don't know. I've said some pretty, well, maybe I haven't said some pretty salty things on here and just thought it was.
I mean,
but-
we haven't even gotten a strike on YouTube recently.
I mean, I'm definitely shadow banned on Instagram. Like I've been like stuck at like 1,000 followers for like 2 years.
fair.
Yeah,
like, it
bro,
just
but that's 20% of the number of people that follow CSIS. That's pretty good.
I know.
right?
I know. My goal in life now is to overtake CC's amount of followers on Insta. That is my goal in life.
I don't know what their Instagram is. Let me check.
They probably
That
don't.
Well,
was
Liz
just
is looking
Facebook.
into that. If you'd like to send us
Yeah.
proof of completing the Patriot Challenge and publicly ridiculing the government, you should send a screenshot, feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. First person to do that, I think we're going to send a free t-shirt. All expense paid, free t-shirt.
There you go.
Depending on where you live, could be hand delivered.
Possibly.
Meet us at the range.
Maybe.
This is funny.
What I really don't want is like the 10 matching Suburbans showing up at the range.
To also get their t-shirt.
Yeah, that would be no good. New year, new ruck. It is time to prepare yourself. I've noticed a lack of participation from other podcasters. The sign up list, and possibly this is the extra step of having to go through Gilded, because other Andrew and I have been banned from the internet. We have been unpersoned. In order to talk to me, you basically have to use Gilded. That's or call me on the phone. And
Which also is
I
not
mean-
like an awful idea, though. Get back to the basics.
yeah, people that want to talk to me like have to put in an effort, and they can't just spam me on Facebook, which, you know what, I'm pretty good with.
Yeah, it should
But
be.
there is a barrier to entry here, and maybe the effort of getting on Gilded to talk to Andrew and I to get registered for the Ruck Challenge is too much for other podcasters.
Mm. Fair.
This is going to be week 1 of the New Year, New Ruck Canadian Patriot Podcast Ruck Challenge thingy that we're doing, which fingers crossed everybody's going to be in good shape for Razul, because that fingers crossed is going to be announced for the end of March, and then we can go and get our Finnish rucks going. Will be good times. I think Andrew and I are probably in it to win it.
What's winning? 100
Shocker.
kilometers?
Yeah, total distance with bonuses. But we put an upper bound on bonuses this time, because other Andrew is younger and
Spry.
more enthusiastic than I am. He was willing to carry a lot of weight and collect a lot of bonus points. So I've put the kibosh on that by putting an upper bound of double the goal weight.
Yeah.
You just get the goal weight, and that's it. Double the goal weight, and that's it for the distance bonus. Okay, on to the news. I guess before we do the first thing, PEI, we'll continue on that vein.
Sure.
So we didn't talk about it last week because I don't trust a lot of things that you see on the internet for various reasons.
56
And there was
followers. What a bunch of losers. Sorry.
I knew that was going to come up.
See, CSIS has 56 followers on Insta.
I don't even know if that's really
Crushing
but-
them. Crushing them.
My favorite one is the other one where it's like the caption is redacted. I was like, what the hell?
Lame.
Sorry, Andrew.
No, I'm just confused about the CSIS Instagram page. The
She posted it in the chat.
redacted one is like more
like a spoof
believable
account.
than the one that looks official.
I
Yeah.
know. I know.
I don't know. CSIS_Canada and CSIS_Canada on off.
I'm
I
gonna
don't
say
understand.
this CSIS_Canada.
I
But
think
here's
the other one's got to be a spoof account. It's
I
only
think
got
they're
11
both
followers.
spoof accounts because neither one of them have automatic blue check marks. I feel like if it was actual
But they're
government,
Canada. They
just
can't
have-
afford to buy the blue check.
Yeah,
mark.
maybe
But that's
Daddy
Instagram,
Elon
not
won't give them-
Twitter.
Oh. How do I get a blue
And
check mark?
their Facebook page already has a blue check mark. So their
I don't know.
Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, they've got it in. Either way, it's hilarious. And if somebody is going to pose as CSIS, they also deserve to get spammed. So
Exactly.
Fair
just
enough.
troll like you've got nothing better to do in your life.
Joke's on you. I don't.
You have
don't
so
do the
many
rest of the
things
social
better. Yeah, Pierre's going to learn how to do social media just to troll.
Yeah. Either that or I'm just gonna hand the phone to Mel and she'll figure it out.
Can we actually just make an Instagram account for you, Pierre, that's like drunk Pierre? And then the only time you actually get to go on it is when you're just like super drunk.
30-second shorts of you being drunk and saying stuff.
Yeah. And like
That'll
also
get me
just
banned.
trolling and commenting. Like same with a Twitter account. See how long it takes for you to get banned. And it's like we can only
I'm
tweet
good.
when Pierre's drunk.
I'm good.
As long as you don't say anything not true, you're pretty good on Twitter now. Got Elon leading
That's
the way
true.
on that.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a like
I don't trust
lot of-
Elon
I
any
don't-
further than I can throw him. But
right.
it's nice that some people are coming back that got kicked off, like
Sure.
Dr. Malone and
Yeah,
Dr. McCullough and stuff like that. So
it's true. I kind of
small-
think he's a
small
little bit of
light.
like a wolf in sheep's clothing, but I don't
Yes.
really know the logistics of that yet.
Yes, exactly. I think it has to do mostly with the whole cybernetic chip thing. Don't know how that's all going to play out. Could be a little ways off still, but
Explain
But
that
I-
to me. I don't think I've heard too much about that.
Well, he's working on like a chip that can like be implanted in like the
that,
base of your
yeah.
brain. You
Is
know,
that the Neuralink thing?
yeah.
Is that
So
what
like
it's called?
I don't want
yeah,
that.
if it works,
I don't-
if it's used for good, it could like give a quadriplegic their motor skills back, right? Like it will
Sure, yeah,
reconnect, make those
absolutely.
connections back. But
Same quadriplegic though, they could shut off at any time.
yeah, exactly. But it also works the opposite way, where it's
Yeah.
like, you have been cited for wrong think. We're gonna just put you on timeout for a little while, just like in
We're just gonna shut you down.
yeah, like altered carbon. There, it's just like you're
Yeah.
gonna go on
So
timeout.
I
Power you
support this
down.
if you want to be a politician in this country.
I mean, that
who
too
gets to
maybe
have
should
control
be
of
the
the switch,
test
right?
group. They should be
Yeah.
the control group.
Yeah,
Just be
yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh, hey, this work? Yeah, anyways, sorry, Andrew, what were we talking
no.
about? We were talking about PEI.
PEI.
Yeah.
Right.
So you were thinking that it was maybe just, like clickbait, maybe a little.
Not necessarily clickbait, but yeah, kind of clickbait was. It was strange that and Blacklock has broken lots of other news stories and done like I'm not discounting it strictly because it was Blacklock reporter that was reporting it, but it was a very thin story to begin with.
My opinion on that whole thing is most likely somebody in the media was probably shooting the shit with a politician, and they probably spitballed that as an idea, and then they kind of ran with it because it's already been refuted. And like, no, we're not doing that. I mean,
Well, and
maybe
that,
they're like,
just because
hey,
it was
hey,
refuted
let this
doesn't
out there
make
and
it-
see what people say. And then as soon as everybody's like, this is bullshit, they realize it's going to go over about as well as a fart in church and decided not to do it. I don't know. It's hard to
I don't
say.
think I don't think that that's the case. I think that this was just a misreported thing that someone got carried away and published it, and then CCFR got excited about it because CCFR gets excited easily. I mean, they're
Well, when you're lobby groups, you're supposed to have, relevant news and media and updates. So you can
right at which
grasp
and like
those
having a
straws.
reaction to this being a potential thing that the government's going to do is the right thing to do and to get out in
Yeah,
front of
for
it
sure.
and to do all of those things. But I don't. I was skeptical to begin with, and then to see the government saying, and again, not that the government is necessarily believable, but then the government saying that we're not in a position where we can start rolling this out in PEI. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, that was the
I
other.
don't know
side
why
of
the
it. It's
government
like,
is suddenly going to like start doing things reasonably and logically today. That's not.
to say like they had no idea how they were going to do it last year or before Christmas. Nothing's changed in the past month. They
Right,
still have no idea how they're going to do it.
I'm still not discounting that the federal government would be like, you know what? Taking guns from people in PEI is a good place to start because it's an island. Where are they going to go? It's small. We have
They're not going to fight back.
Large police force.
You got to pay to get off the island.
Right. That's what it's like. If you were going to do the thought exercise, if we're to start, PEI is not a bad proving ground for some of this, but I feel like this was incredibly premature.
Like, I agree with you because PEI has enough like libs that they could have like tested that out pretty good. Because the same logic about testing grounds would apply to Newfoundland, except those guys, I don't think I'd want to be on. Like, they seem a little like off-brand. It's Newfies, right? But I don't think I'd want to cross one. Like,
I don't think I would want to be in
Unpredictable.
law enforcement and trying to take away people's firearms. That doesn't seem like it would go.
Every
I don't
single
Well,
door you
Doesn't seem
knock on
logical.
could be potentially dangerous, and then therefore you need to knock 2 million people, which
but that's kind of what
they have no interest in doing that. Yeah, no, they have no.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now, anyways, it seems like they have no interest in doing that. I mean, most people wouldn't, right?
Well, and that's where I think that you're actually going to find most of your resistance is similar to like the stay-at-home orders, right? The government went ahead and said that the police would be enforcing it. And then police forces stepped out and said, no, we won't.
No.
Because, it's made up of average people. And, obviously, everybody in the police force carries a sidearm. They're not idiots when it comes to like, firearms. They're not afraid of firearms. They understand that most people probably have firearms and have training to hold those firearms. I would say that a huge majority of folks, like, because if they were afraid of them, or thought that they shouldn't have them, they would not be in that field of work.
Mm,
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think that's gone
my
away.
My friend
at
is
one
currently
point,
right on the force right now, and he's
He
painting a
doesn't
pretty
think-
different. He's painting a pretty different
Really?
picture. Yeah, like
yeah.
he's the
Really?
only person on the freaking force that like knows anything about guns. Like they've come to different
Really?
crime scenes and find a gun, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, like be careful, don't touch it." And he's like, "It's a BB gun. Everybody needs to fucking relax."
Yeah, no,
Really?
yeah,
it's very.
I think what Liz is describing is a generation
Maybe
of
more
police that no
rural,
longer
maybe more rural the
exists.
police departments, sure. But
Yeah,
most
but-
inner cities like Cambridge, Waterloo, Hamilton, GTA, especially now with the big changeover and a lot of like, you know, the
Mm.
inclusive hiring that's been happening. It's not it's not
DEI.
like that. Yeah. So
Right, and
Yeah.
90% of them don't use the firearm except for qualification. They don't understand how it works.
yeah. But at the same
they-
time,
they
they also,
barely-
because they know nothing about firearms, I don't think they have any interest in like you said,
Yeah,
carrying
yeah.
out those orders just because it's scary. Like
Yeah,
you want
that's
to go
fair
knock
too.
on 2 million doors of people that actually know how to use their firearms, which you don't really.
Yeah, it's true. No,
So-
it's true. And I mean,
Hard to say.
that I find that actually a lot scarier. Like when people
yeah.
talk about folks, okay, so the whole obviously like George Floyd thing and like police brutality, all this stuff. When we talk about that, and you know, like accidental shootings and like just all that stuff, this
Mhm.
is a really good example of, you know, maybe that should be a little bit more intrinsic to the qualifying, you know, criteria. Is, you know, just
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
whether
if you
that's
started to
training-
put qualifying criteria around hiring police officers, they wouldn't have done things like drop the pin test or physical fitness standards to join police forces.
And I mean, how many
Here's-
people in the police force that, 20 years on the service have never pulled their gun out other than to unload, load, start the day and this and that and store it and shoot it for their qualification, right? On the job. It's not a giant criteria. I mean, I'm hopeful that anytime there's a scenario where a cop is around and something needs to happen, that this person is confident in what he needs to do and doesn't like hide behind a wall and like put the gun around the corner and empty the mag like in Toronto. But because it is unlikely, not an everyday scenario that cops get into shootouts or whatever, right? I mean,
it's
I
happening
guess
more
a
and
little bit-
more.
it's happening a little bit more, but I mean, even if you were to break it down, right? Like,
I guess if I was to have to choose between having a more fit cop or a cop that knew how to use the sidearm he carried or she carried, I would rather have, you know, like an old fat dude. Right?
I don't know if
Get
Liz
what I
cut
mean?
out for everybody else or just me,
Yeah,
but all I
yeah,
got out of
no.
that was Liz wants an old fat dude.
yeah,
Yeah, you trailed off right at that part there. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Okay,
sure I know
so-
what you're saying.
Yeah, like if I had to choose,
I'd rather have
Like,
the person that has the power to kill me, like know how to use that power properly and wisely and
Yes.
accurately, as opposed to the person that can.
Is this
Bench
the
200
part of the
pounds.
show where I get to like pick on every police agency in the
Right.
country because of institutional nonsense that's going on and not upsetting, not bashing on like individual officers, but like the institution of policing being broken because the fact that like in Ontario, they've dropped the requirements for the pin test for a physical fitness standard because they
Yeah.
qualify with their firearms on what I believe for most agencies is an annual basis, but I also know
It's
from
annual.
friends of mine that are trainers for a large municipal police force in Ontario, because of COVID, they have people running around with rifles, shotguns, and handguns that they haven't qualified in over 24 months on.
Yep.
and guess what? They
And
don't
the
get
excuse
pinned
for
to
whatever
mags.
reason is given as COVID. But this
Yeah.
is the same as like how many police officers have done any kind of combatives training.
yeah.
They're not rolling jujitsu 5 nights a week. They're not probably
I will
doing
say,
any
though-
use of force training on any sort of regular cadence. Go ahead, Liz.
So I will say in terms of the jujitsu thing, there is like a lot more folks coming into the dojos and training, a lot more police personnel that are coming into the dojos and training, but it's not mandated by whatever police force or financially supported by it.
Yeah, like
And
they
I
should
mean-
have
So it's the same
trainers
as people
in
that-
house. They should be taking. They should have to take jujitsu like once a week. You know what I mean? Like it should
Yeah.
just be like
minimum.
mandatory.
There's
Mandatory
some
learning.
places.
Defund the police.
Well, so but this is the thing, is that there is a couple of countries, and I could not tell you which ones they are, but where they actually teach jujitsu first before they actually give you firearms. Like you have to do
Probably in
your-
Brazil.
Yeah, yes, I would assume that that's part of it, but yeah, but there's a couple, and I mean the theory there is that, and I appreciate it, is that, you know, like your goal is to safely subdue somebody, you
Yeah.
know, like
Without hurting them and without getting
Absolutely.
yourself hurt at the same time.
there's a term for it because they use it when they and
Oh, we're losing you.
oh
Try again.
yep.
What's the term?
Hope Liz's old
Um,
man gets some better internets.
It's bad. No, I don't know what the term is, but I can't remember what it is, but they use the method in like correction facilities, especially like youth facilities, where they teach you how to, you know, safely restrain.
Oh yeah, like restraint exercises without.
Yeah, where it's like non-lethal or non-combative, but you know, there's specialized training for that. And you know, there's value to understanding
Oh,
that.
use of force continuum stuff it should be part of academy training for every agency. Is at least in Ontario, I'm confident that use of force continuum training is part of police training. But my bigger issue with this goes back to it's the ongoing training that's not being done.
Yeah.
It's the once a year that you're supposed to qualify with your firearm. It's the do they have any driving courses after they get on the job? There's probably no continuing education for defensive or offensive driving. There's probably very little training in use of force stuff because once you know how to use the baton and the taser and the gun, those tools don't really change, but they're tools. You should practice with them. And the same thing, part of the use of force thing with like empty hand control, right? Like being able to control someone without using a tool, right? That's a difficult skill. So doing something like jujitsu to be able to use those open-handed, less lethal options before you have to go to something like a firearm. But we don't put any emphasis in police being able to do any of that on the job continuing education training, because all of the agencies are understaffed, and through certain policies like diversity, inclusion, and equity, we're hiring candidates that may not be the most qualified people for the job because they tick a bunch of boxes.
Yeah.
So now we have people that are doing a dangerous job that don't have the training that I think that they should have, that don't have the ongoing skills upgrades that I think that they should have. And we're hired based on checking a DEI box rather than their ability to actually safely, successfully do the job. So I feel like there's going to be a strong correlation between people that are checking the DEI box and getting the job on a police agency and people that don't go to the range on their own time and don't go to jujitsu on their own time and don't do all of these other, because it's a job that they got hired to because they ticked the right boxes on the employment form, not because they were actually interested in the profession of law enforcement, or not because they were actually interested in their community, because it was an easy job to get and it pays well.
Well, and I
It
think
pays pretty
that-
good, and if you've got a notch above most people, you know, well worth the
Well, and I
time.
think there is a reason why police agencies like to hire people that are about 97 IQ. You got to be pretty good at following orders and reading the rule book and getting along with things, but you don't want to be so good at it that you wonder why you're doing some of the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, I used to want to be a civil servant in this role, and I'm really glad that I never actually got into that. But there's definitely like part of the appeal is either, you know, like Well, part of it, I do think so. So like part
Yep.
of the appeal, a good portion of it is, like community betterment. So that's one side of it, community
Good job
betterment.
security.
Well, I think that that's part of it, but you kind of don't go into public service like that thinking you're going to make a lot of money. You can definitely
and I
go
know-
into other fields. So there's the one side that says, you're in it to make your community a better place. But then there's the other side of it that it's like egoism. Like that's why they're going into it, because it is a place of authority. It's a place of control. You get to carry a gun, you get to have this authority over people, and folks are really you're either one or the other. It goes back to the story of the two wolves, right? Anyways, but it's kind of like that, and I just find more and more that like our communities are like structurally screwed. So I don't think it's as much that as to
There's
why
no-
people are getting into it.
So it's all reactive now. There's no
Yeah.
police outreach. There's no, it's long gone are the days where
Well,
police
you knew
officers
who
would
your
come into.
cops.
Well, yeah, you had the DARE program and stuff like that where
Yeah.
they come in and say hi and so you're not afraid of cops
Yeah.
and stuff like that. They don't do anything like that anymore. It's very
Well-
they've been
Yeah.
especially after the BLM stuff, they've been
Mhm.
made to be the pariahs of society now. Big bad police officers. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't need them to defend myself, but I mean in this country,
Technically.
I can't.
Legally?
I can't. Yeah, legally, I'm not allowed to defend myself in this country, so they have to do it for me.
Mhm.
And as far as like enforcing laws and getting property back and stuff like that, they have to do that. So we do need them. And obviously, if they were better trained and better equipped and et cetera, I'd be more for them. But in their current state, yeah, they're doing nobody any favors right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I also think that we should kind of follow some of the US for this, where in your district, you vote for your
Yeah.
county
Yeah,
sheriff,
for sheriff's
Like-
office. Yeah, absolutely.
sheriff's office, if the person in charge of whatever digit or whatever police force or whatever is doing a really bad job, us as the people, right, can get together and say, hey, you're doing a really bad job, take off, eh? And then we can put someone else in. But as it stands right now, right, it's government appointees. So it's like, hey, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. We need someone to do this job, which, we'll give you
If-
some cushion, we'll
if
give
we
you
get to
this, we'll
vote
give you
in-
our support.
If we get to
Yeah.
vote in who we want, then they don't get to have their woke ideologies, right? So
Well, and
Yeah,
it's
and I mean,
interesting, some of
at
that
that point-
stuff. Sorry, go ahead, Pierre.
But at that point, right, like you're also keeping it localized. So it's not like the federal elections where,
Yeah.
certain areas decide who runs the whole country, right? Like out
Yeah.
where I live, we're probably all most likely similar minded people because we don't live in a city area.
Well, that just
That-
means that you have like different needs. Absolutely, you have
Yeah.
different needs.
Right,
And
compared to someone that lives in Toronto and someone else. So I mean, so it wouldn't be like, I mean, I'm still saying an election for this, which I mean is an issue, but it wouldn't be, out where I am, I want something different, and it's going to be different than someone lives in Toronto or in those high metropolitan areas
so
that
the
swing the
thing
vote for everything.
but the thing with that is that, okay, so Toronto police, that's different. Where you see the problems is, provincial police or, the federal police, like the RCMP or the OPP, or Quebec has their own. But I think that's it, right? I think just Quebec and Ontario have their own.
there's a
The
few
rest-
others.
And Newfoundland, the royal, somebody has a royal something constabulary. It's Newfoundland or New Brunswick. It's one of the ends.
It's not
Okay.
New Brunswick.
It's not New Brunswick. They
No,
have
it's not New
RCMP.
Brunswick.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, so the rest of them contract the
Newfoundland.
RCMP to do it then, right? So that makes it very challenging when you've got like OPP or, Newfoundland or Quebec or the RCMP doing it, because again, you're right, everything is mainstreamed on the legislative side. Like it's better if you
Yeah.
have regional stuff. Like, so where I live, I live in Perth County, but we have the biggest city in our county, which is still a pretty small city. Their police force actually polices our entire county now. So that means, though, that a lot of the people coming into that police force are choosing that region. You know, they're not like OPP where they're going to get assigned, you know, and have to relocate.
Congratulations, you're going to Ottawa Piscat.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, I know. Attawapiskat would suck. But, you know, like that kind of stuff.
I mean, it could always be worse.
It could be, but I mean,
so
that's the point,
what's
though,
the
right?
hunting
Is
up
that
there?
yeah,
What's
it's
the
actually not.
property value.
It's not actually that bad up in Attawapiskat, but like,
Right.
There's train access.
yeah, it's true.
All right. Congratulations. You're going to Moosonee.
I've also been there, super cool, but I don't think I'd want to live there. And you definitely get up there on the Polar Bear Express. That's the name of the train. But like, yeah, that's the point, is that you're not likely to get assigned to something. So you can be a little bit more community based. But when you have like a federal police force or a provincial police force, like everything's mandated from the top and it has zero, like obviously there's certain laws that you have to follow, but you know, you're more likely to find community-based people in smaller police forces, right? Because they understand their demographic of people that they're policing. And that's not what's happening here. Like, I can't even imagine, you know, being policed by like,
A Newfoundlander, you wouldn't even know what your ticket's for.
So New Brunswick being policed by the same people that are policing, you know, parts of BC. That's totally opposite demographic of people, right? So it just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
So I'm agreeing with you, Pierre. It's okay.
yeah, but I mean, like, right, policing across Canada is pretty much done the same way. Like, there might be some
there's
differences
law
in the
for
laws.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
right,
law for
which-
sure.
97% of everything they do is just regular laws.
Yeah,
So I
but
mean, policing
there's
in New Brunswick
police.
compared to BC is not much different. Like, fine, there might be something different on the books where BC can do something and New Brunswick can't. But I
But
mean,
you're also
you can't go down the highway at 150. You can't beat the crap out of your girlfriend, right? Which are a lot
right,
of
but you're
the stuff
more
they're going to deal with.
likely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, technically, lawfully, you can't, but you might be more likely to, you know, have a police chief that, or like a team of people less likely to prosecute or less likely to place those charges if they understand the situation. And I'm just saying that, like, I know from my experience, we used to have a couple of guys here that lived in town, that policed our town, and they knew who was actually troublemakers, like as a threat, or who was just like little shitheads, right? And they would scare the little shitheads and deal with the actual threats. And, you know, if they were to abide by the letter of the law, that, you know, somebody who maybe was an implant from, you know, a big police force, those kids that were just troublemakers that just needed to be scared a little bit would then be in the system, and that would totally screw up the rest of their future, right? Instead, they just got like a scare that kind of set them straight, you know? But 2 cents.
I can see that.
Well, continuing in the vein of awesome policing, a Strathmore Mountie spared a criminal record for unlawful firearms possession.
This guy's a piece
This
of
is from
shit.
last week. Well, no, this guy is technically a piece of shit.
Rules for
Because
thee, not for me.
Technically breached the criminal code, which, not a lawyer, but I'm willing to play one on Monday night on the internet. Isn't technically breaching the criminal code like the part that like
He is like dead to rights, guilty as fuck.
right?
And got
Isn't that, like,
completely off. Like
technically
not
breaking
even
the law
not even a
is
not
like
even a slap on the wrist. Like
the
less
way
than
that
a
you
slap on the wrist.
Yeah, 'cause
judge the
didn't
law?
he's not even
He
licensed
got fined
to
like
own-
2 days pay or some shit. That's it. Like
'cause-
nothing.
okay, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Background on the details. Yeah. This
This-
constable took his
Yeah.
2 service pistols
Okay.
and a third pistol, which he did not own, to a licensed approved shooting facility. I think he went to an indoor range in Calgary.
Okay.
That particular detail is not important, but he took his service handguns, a Smith and a Colt,
Sure.
and also a privately owned handgun. And
But
the
he
staff,
he's not licensed at all, right?
He is
Outside
not
of being
licensed
on a
at all.
police force.
No.
He is not lawfully
He-
allowed to even own, let alone illegally transport and
or
take his
use, or
service.
borrow,
like
or
all
any
that
of
stuff.
these other things. So he can do whatever the RCMP says he can do with his issued sidearms. With
Yep.
the pistols that the government gave him, he can do whatever the government says. Not a requirement to be a police officer to have a firearms license. It's not
No.
your gun, it's the gun that you're issued. It's like the car. It's not your car, it's the car that you're issued, which is
But it
why you're
also
allowed to like turn
stays-
on the flashy lights and drive above the speed limit and do other things that are not
But it also
things that
stays
I'm
at the
allowed to do.
station. when you
Yeah,
clock
exactly.
out.
Because there's parameters that you have to.
The firearms thing is not necessarily accurate. I don't understand the details of the RCMP system. Individual police agencies under various acts at the provincial level are allowed to dictate what officers are allowed to do with their service firearms when they're off duty. So it doesn't have to stay at the station. That's a discretionary thing that varies by service, but not the point. The point is he took a Beretta pistol that he was not the owner of to the gun range with his family to go shooting, which normally I would not have a big problem with, except this guy's a fucking cop and should know better. You can't just go around borrowing handguns from your buddies and then driving them to the range. Because if I do that, I'm getting a 10-year firearms probation.
Mhm.
All of my firearms are being confiscated. And I'm probably going to jail. At the very least, I'm paying a very hefty fine, but I'm probably going to jail.
And first offense, you're at the minimum paying a very, very large fine. And you
Oh,
just
yeah.
lost, thousands of dollars in
Right, but you have to
firearms.
also remember, I am not a public servant. I don't tick any of the boxes for diversity, equity, or inclusion. So
Yes.
I'm getting the entire book, several books thrown at me. Whereas Skippy McGee here from the RCMP had to pay, I think it was a $400 fine.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, that's
it-
nothing.
It wasn't. It was a $300 donation to a charity of his choosing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like not even
Oh.
a day's pay.
So that is like, I don't understand how that he wasn't even put on. Was he put on leave? At all?
Because
Or
the
just pending
RCMP,
investigation?
no, the RCMP investigated, and the RCMP found that they had not made a the RCMP determined that he was cleared and it was not a violation of their policies.
The classic that RCMP, we investigated ourselves and deemed we did
The
nothing wrong.
RCMP deemed that he did not violate any RCMP policies by borrowing a friend's gun and taking it to the range.
So clearly his boss likes him.
Now I have more questions
The
about the
judge
friend that
likes
lent
him.
him the firearm, as well as in this article that instead of borrowing,
Yeah,
like he borrowed it because the trigger was heavy, so a fellow member of the police force said, no problem, take my Beretta. So I have a problem with that officer as well. Him being, I'm assuming this was a registered firearm, and understanding the laws that we are talking about, that we would all get the book thrown at us. Said, here, borrow mine. So is anything happening to that person? Because
I
I
mean,
mean, I'm not saying that.
Can that be used as precedence? I'm just looking at Chris's comment in the
Again, not a lawyer, willing to play one on Monday nights. I
So-
don't think it matters. I don't think it matters because it's discretionary for the judge, because we don't have mandatory minimums anymore for basically anything.
yeah.
I think that if I were to do this, if I were to loan a pistol to a non-RPAL holder, because remember, you're not allowed to transfer the ownership of a pistol even on a temporary basis right now.
Yeah.
Right? Handguns are prohibited, except everybody who's got a handgun
Except
can continue
not.
to have the handgun because the government can't figure out what to do. But I'm not allowed to loan my restricted firearms to another person, even with a restricted firearms license, never mind somebody doesn't have one. So I'm reasonably confident in saying that if I were to give somebody one of my handguns and somebody were to get caught in possession of it, that guy is getting in trouble and I'm losing all my guns.
Yeah, I agree.
And at this place, he could have rented one for $23 and avoided all this. So the fuckers just
Well,
cheat.
avoided all of what? Like this didn't cost it. Like this cost this
No,
guy
well,
$300
Public outrage.
for.
That's what it could
I
have
mean-
avoided. Public
I
outrage.
mean, it wouldn't have given us
There is no
much to
public
talk about
outrage.
on Monday.
The only
but-
people that are mad about this are on the podcast.
Like the
who are
four
going to be
people right
listening to the
here, and
podcast.
yeah,
Exactly. You know what? I think that if more people heard about it, I think folks would.
I don't, and I think that the
I-
reason for that is because most people would be like, "What? He's a cop. He has guns. He should be allowed to do
Yeah.
these things."
Exactly. The miscomprehension of
the amount of people
You
that only cops should have guns.
they don't
Right? Because
understand.
clearly,
Right?
all police officers obviously exercise impeccable judgment.
Yeah, we leave them on the hoods of cars. We shoot them at each other when we're in the loading area.
We shoot up firehouses, like, right? So I mean, exactly. So 90% of
True.
people probably don't even understand that to be a police officer, right? Yes, you do training, you get your qualifications,
Barely.
which is up for
though.
debate.
We've already
Which is up for
identified
debate whether
barely.
it's good training or not. That's
Yeah.
not up for debate. Fine, but in the regular public's eye, they've gone through the training. They have been deemed that if they were to use that firearm, they would be able to use it in a effective, capable manner. Whether that's accurate or not doesn't matter. And they don't care whether that person has a license, understands the law completely or whatever, because the cops, everybody knows cops have guns and they
Mhm.
should understand the concept, that they know how to use it. So nobody's going to bat an eyelash at this because they're like, well, he's a cop, right? Doesn't matter. He can have a belt-fed machine gun. He's a cop. Nobody's going to question anything, looking into it and understanding the firearms laws that
Yeah, I'm
are,
still going with
in-
defund the police. This is
yeah, I mean,
Well, especially the
I'm in
RCMP
support.
though.
Yeah. Well, so
Especially
it's
the
funny that you
RCMP.
say that about the RCMP because that was actually when I was 19. I started the application process to be an RCMP officer.
I started it too.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
let me the polygraph, I got that far and I was like, whoa, this
Oh.
is too much. Like
I've got two family members in the RCMP,
You're right.
one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast.
I'd
I'm
rather
still
have a
debating.
sister in the whorehouse than in the RCMP.
that's what my uncle said. That phrase exactly. He's like, I'd rather have a sister in the whorehouse than a niece in the RCMP. Now, my uncle was military police. So he actually worked with the RCMP quite a bit because he was
Mm.
like a liaison role all over Canada because he was stationed in a variety of different
Gross.
places. Yeah, so he did a lot of like undercover and work with the RCMP. And he said the problem is that they have so much money that they just behave like assholes with money and just think, oh, okay, this is a problem. Let's just throw money at it instead of actually doing the work to learn how to do it better or to be critical thinkers, essentially. Now I'm
Right, and that-
paraphrasing some of the stuff, but
Right. And at that point, like, we could talk about budgeting, right? Like, I mean, I don't remember which podcast I was listening to. Unfortunately, it doesn't affect Canada in this scenario, but it was a person, he was ex-military, one of the special forces.
Wow,
And-
I should have gone into the RCMP. Sorry, I'll let you finish your story in 1 second here. I wanted to see how much money these yahoos had, and it averages out that after you've been on the job for 2 years, it's $100,000.
Yeah.
100,000 after 2.
And,
Sorry,
and
go on, Pierre. I got distracted about money.
Yeah, no, and I'll tell you a story after this whole podcast about that. But so it was I believe it was an American one. I don't know where in the States, but they upfitted a SWAT team with nods, like $10,000 per person on the thing. And this person had just gotten out of the military, was trying to make his name being a person. So he said, no problem, 2 days, $400 a person to adequately, understand the concept of looking through sites on nods, this, that, like, get a facility, $400 a head, 2 days of training. And they were told, that's too much. You just purchased $10,000 worth of equipment per person, and
Yeah.
nobody
Nobody's
knows
not
how
gonna
to.
know how to use.
Yeah, and nobody knows how to use it. He's like, look, like I'm literally giving this away. Like, you're gonna pay so much money for some people or whatever. I think he knew someone or something, right? But he's like, $400 a person, 2 days, just to understand the concept of looking through nods and trying to look down your sight. Whether it be on your AR, your pistol, whatever, right? Like, there's an adjustment there compared to looking through your regular sight. And so yeah, they're dumping money in the stupidest ways. And
Government's
I
gonna
mean,
government.
we should take nods away and spend that $10,000 per person on training.
Yeah.
I mean, I I would be fine with that because again, like defund the horse police, but really, if we're going to have a policing service, just build in training time into the policing service. But
Yeah.
this requires fixing all of the broken, systematized
true.
problems in policing. This requires not hiring people based on their appearance. This requires hiring people that can pass physical fitness tests. This requires people that can exercise good judgment. This requires hiring people that are able to follow and want to follow all of these various rules and are not
So-
going to want to be little special snowflakes, because this is a paramilitary organization. The police forces are structured in a certain way for a reason, and it's so people do things in a uniform kind of a way.
Mhm.
Like
And-
officer
and on-
discretion is a thing, but that only goes so far. This is still a professional development problem, though. If you want to fix it, you have to do the training. And if
To
they're not
act
going
like
to
a
put in the time
professional.
and money for training,
Right? Like how much time do you guys spend at the Rage, and how much money per year do you spend on ammo, whether you're reloading or just
I'm uncomfortable
competitions
answering this
or-
question.
right? So
It's a very personal question.
but so you have your full-time job and you find time to go to the range, whether it's for recreational, just to stay on. Well, you guys do a lot of competitions, so you gotta, you want it. It's a perishable skill. So why not look at
Oh
putting
no, you
people
just
on the
gotta, you
force?
take up IDPA. I don't practice anymore.
Are you trying to piss off listeners or something?
Yes. Well, I'm just picking,
Yeah.
it happens to be a convenient acronym that works out.
So
Yeah, but-
there's this thing that that blows my mind. So I'm part of a bunch of professional associations for my job. I had to pay a lot of money to be part of these professional associations. But I also am required to complete multiple hours worth of professional upgrading annually. Otherwise, I don't get to keep my membership. And part of that membership is like just it's good credit, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? Like you can say, oh, I'm a member of this professional association, and it gives you a bit of an automatic credit because they've gone through a vetting process to even allow you there. And then there's also this knowledge that there is consistent upgrading that you have to do, professional development that you have to do to maintain that relationship. And that's something that I do. Some of that stuff I do on my own time because I want to maintain that relationship. So I don't have a problem per se if people are getting paid 100,000 a year or after 2 years, right? I don't have a problem with that as long as there is. You talked about the physical fitness element, as long as that is maintained, as long as there's professional upgrades that are happening that are relevant to the job text, as long as there's appropriate training that's occurring, and some of that cost, like the wage makes it appealing. The aspect of it being a little bit more elite might make it appealing, but I believe that it would be just more efficient, right? Like that's the problem. So you would inevitably defund the system by just making it a little bit more, what it used to be. It used to be a pretty prestigious job, right? Like it used to
And
be.
I think if you got rid of all of the institutional inertia that's causing all of the assorted
Strife.
problems in policing, I think it could be again.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there is
It's
the
a very
profession of
easy
policing
fix.
is a well, I think this is a bigger, like most of the things that our government has broken are an easy fix. The problem is people don't want to do the hard work of starting about the fix, because I'm going to take away your $10,000 night vision and I'm going to make you go do jujitsu.
Yeah.
That's not going to be an easy sell. That's not going to be a good time for people.
And trying convincing the public opinion whose voice is a driving factor in society, right? Because public opinion
we
is
really
either
probably
absent.
shouldn't listen to the public.
Yeah, I know, but
No.
I mean that's why these decisions are made, right? Is based on voting, clout, right? Is what are the people that are going to vote us in? What are they going to think, right? So there's that kind of element to it as well. Like, try explaining that to. I don't know. I just, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. My brain is not forming into great sentences right now, but I'm
No,
with you.
yeah, well, it's a societal thing, right? You got to want the change.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing. And a
Yeah.
majority of society has been brainwashed, especially in the areas that control a lot of the voting. GTA, I've all been brainwashed
Yeah.
into cop
Well,
bad, right? Police bad, right? All the, like I said, back to all the BLM stuff. It's just cops
but
are
also,
the enemy, and so it's really hard
yeah.
getting that whole mindset to change.
Well, and I think that there's also been a really big push for people, whether or not intentional or what, but there's a really big push for people to really think that the triviality of their own life is the biggest thing that they need to focus on. Like a good example.
I'm working on
Oh,
me right now.
yeah, I'm working on me right now. Or, oh, I don't have time for anything because I'm spending 6 days at the arena with my, teenage kid because they're going to be the next, Sidney Crosby or Wayne Gretzky, blah, 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 right? So they've been, and like, I need to have this like high paying job because I need to afford to have my kid at the arena 5 nights a week, right? And that is literally the focus of their life, and that's what they've been told is the biggest focus of their life.
Yeah.
And it's like
Their
that
life means
is
nothing unless my kid is playing AAA hockey and
absolutely.
I'm spending $30,000 a year and supporting this child to play hockey that he's probably not going to play professionally.
No, and like have to go out and get a second job just to pay for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what folks have been told. I don't know how or why, but somewhere along the line, folks were convinced that is the biggest problem in their life. So then, yeah, have fun trying to convince them that our system is broken because they're incapable of thinking outside of,
No,
Or only have our
I'm
four
still
walls,
with I'm still with the average voter in Toronto. Defund the police. I remain unconvinced in changing my stance on this.
I mean, I don't.
The thing is I think
disagree.
where your point's coming from is that it's so far gone that they need to lose it so that they can realize what they had. And when there's no cops coming ever at all, and it's
right,
pure,
but like if we're not applying the law
every day, every
to the
night.
police, and we're not applying the law in certain communities, then eventually whoever is the person willing to do the most violence gets to dictate what the rules are.
I'm about that.
So I'm going to keep working out and training and going to the range and doing all of those things to be good at violence, because at some point it's going to come down to who gets to be good at this.
And you might be onto something where regardless of whether or not they want it to happen, it's just going to happen. Right. And I think we kind of see that now, like, you were just talking about, I don't remember if it was on the show or the pre-show, like, there was a robbery in a small town. Here we had, like in my small town of like 9,000, there was a dude barricaded himself just the other day. Like things are getting a little bit more tense. Things are getting a little bit more complex, and we have less of an equipped like police force because they're not like, they don't know how to hold their gun.
I mean, so I think yes and no. There's a variety of things. In general, violent crime has continued to go down in the last 40 years.
Is that
we
based
do
on
not,
percentage of people? Because our population has
no per capita
increased.
violent crime. I think peaked in the middle or early 70s, which incidentally, there was also a lot of financial precarity, which is what we're seeing again now, is a lot of financial precarity and also changes to shifting demographics. The middle 60s brought a lot of changes to demographics in this country. And now we're seeing again, last year was the greatest number of refugee claims processed by the federal government in the history of the federal government. So again, we're seeing
back in.
The immigrants.
Well, we're seeing financial precarity. We're seeing shifting demographics. We're seeing a lot of the same trends. I think the difference now, even though violent crime is and has been declining, the constant media attention anytime there's anything remotely violent that happens, right? how many people have been barricaded in their houses or in other situations that we've just not heard about because it wasn't
That's-
something that made it into the news cycle.
that's
So
fair.
you get the hyper focused, hyper reality, constant phone notifications, social media posts, front page news cycle for the length of however long this thing is happening for, because it's politically expedient is maybe not the right word for it, because it's not the politicians that are driving what's in the media, but if it bleeds, it leads, right? So that's the thing to talk about. That's the thing that puts eyes on it. So there's more sensationalism around some of these stories, I think. So even though the rate of violent crime per capita is lower now than it has been in 40 years, I think that we're
The
seeing
availability to information of that scenario is nonstop.
the hyper availability of that information and the focus that story gains for a very short period of time because of the way that the media is disseminating that information. I think the other piece of that, though, the other end of the equation, the opposite side of the coin, police agencies have new and better tools now than they would have previously. They are the prevalence of armored vehicles or body armor or helmets or night vision or semi-automatic rifles or any of the other tools that are available for police agencies to use. And in the greatest tradesman analogy ever, if everything you have is a hammer, it all looks like nails.
Mm.
If you've got the mine resistant ambush protection vehicle and level 4 plates and machine guns, well, I mean, I'd want to use those things too if they were available to me.
It's fair.
To become
Well,
a
the-
Patreon to support this. please
Well,
visit.
the other problem though is because of the way that we don't do community policing and the way that we do budgets with zero sum budgeting, you're a large regional police agency and you just bought a Lenco Bearcat, an armored truck. Well, you want to put it front and center. You want to roll up on some drug houses with that and kick some
Sure.
doors
Oh.
down and get some good media attention.
For sure.
Which feeds back into the media cycle of it leads, it bleeds. So like
Yeah.
the armored truck with the SWAT cops just kicked down some doors and threw some flashbangs. So when it's time to do budget appropriations the next year, they can
That's
bring out
true.
the pictures to city council and be like, look at what we did with one armored truck. We definitely need 2 this year.
I guess
Yeah,
I guess
And then
like
we need to.
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I guess when I think of that, like, and maybe my perception of, rates going up and stuff like that is a little bit more of just chaos increasing and loud noise increasing. That's what I see. So I
And
guess
honking.
yeah, honking.
Okay.
No, but you hear like there's a lot more people bitching about, some of the
Everything?
things that
Anything?
everything. And maybe that's where I get a little like dragged down in the weeds, is that I'm like, these people are bitching about stuff so much more, or you hear this in the news, and you're right, it is a sensational like media kind of process that is creating this. But maybe it's just there's more Karens.
There's
that
more squeaky
are-
wheels, and the
yeah.
squeaky wheels are getting catered to.
Yeah, thank you. I told you my brain not really filtering.
Right,
to
we
my
got you,
mouth.
fam.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I think that maybe that's happening a little bit more. So that's maybe where my brain is getting lost, is just this idea of like, the whole like just catering to the nonsense, and the nonsense getting louder, right? Because it really is.
Who screeches the loudest? And
I
why
do
do,
kind
why
of
do we
wish.
keep?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, why do we keep feeding it?
Oh, yeah, we just keep bending our knee to it, and we keep rewarding the bad behavior, which child psychology 101. That's not what you do.
Yeah. Well, and I would be interested to know what a defunded system would look like, because I think that very quickly a lot
You've
of those
seen Mad Max, right?
Look
No.
at
Oh.
Los
You haven't?
Angeles, San
No.
Francisco now. I mean, they're basically defunded. Like it's
Yeah.
it's a shit show. People and there's no there's no
Oh.
laws to enforce. Like you're allowed to steal up to $800 and the cops won't show up. Like it's
Yeah.
Is
just
it 5?
pure
I-
lawlessness. I don't know. I thought it was like
yeah,
800 or something like that.
No, it's a crazy amount, like
Yeah, like
$5,000.
it's pure lawlessness, and they won't even show up because they're not even allowed to do anything about it.
I'm going to drop one more in the show notes. It wasn't in originally, but last week in the news, this was in CP24. Toronto residents are now reporting that they're waiting for 24 hours for police response to non-emergency events.
Mm.
So if
24
you call the
hours.
police in Toronto, you're not seeing a cop for 24 hours unless somebody is actually breaking into your house like right now.
Wow.
So I mean, tell them that you're getting broken into right now if you want them to show up.
Well, yes, but how long can you get away with that for before that becomes a problem? So I mean, I think
mean,
we're seeing
also
that-
noted. I mean, this could be a good thing for people that actually are not worried about it. If you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Well,
Don't actually need the cop. It's like
So I don't know when I had seen this. I saw it pop up a while ago, but it kind of talks about what we're actually talking about right now too, the whole, defunding and police thing and like what ends up happening. But I think it was in the 90s, Los Angeles, specifically like Little Korea or Koreatown or whatever, Los Angeles.
yeah, the
Koreatown.
rooftop Koreans.
Yeah,
They're
the
the best.
rooftop
They're the best.
Koreans, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know what though, is that they're the ones, so eventually
If there's a
the police-
public service announcement saying that the cops aren't coming at
Yeah.
all right now,
yeah,
cowabunga it
know.
is.
but when the cops
Yeah.
did show up, they would arrest the rooftop, like the, vigilante or police force, that was standing there for like illegal possession of firearms or misuse of firearms and all that stuff. And I'm like, that just kind of,
Yeah, it reinforces the bad behavior. It's the thing we've been
Ah.
talking about from the beginning.
Yeah,
For
it's
the past
true.
10,
It's
20
true.
minutes here.
but I just,
Yeah.
I don't remember whether it was like a chat with you guys or whatever that story came up, but
Yeah, well,
I
the
came
rooftop
across it.
Koreans, the rooftop
Yeah.
Koreans showed themselves again in the most recent rounds of BLM riots.
Yeah.
They originally were during the Rodney King riots back in the 90s. That's when they first started.
that
Yeah.
was the 1992 case. Was
Yeah.
4 white Los Angeles police officers were acquitted of assault of Rodney King, which
Yeah.
is what sparked the 1992 Los Angeles riot, which brought us the roof Korean meme.
Mhm.
And as we all know,
Yeah.
rooftop Korea is second best Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well,
Based.
and but that's, I don't know. I foresee that kind of thing happening again,
Right.
So
Right. It's also just quick thing before I know we're wrapping up, but that 24 people waiting up to 24 hours for police after calling 911. I'd like to see the stats and the information of why they called 911 and the urgency of a police officer needing to be there before saying that the cops are shit for not doing that.
No, I'm with random Toronto person complaining about the police. Defund them all. No one's coming to save you. Good luck.
yeah.
I mean,
Purge has begun.
no, I'm not
Mm.
disagreeing with that, but I'm just curious, right? Like,
Here's
okay,
my-
so why did you call because your neighbor's dog is barking, right? Or
Well,
is it
I'm sure that
like,
there's
hey,
some of that.
there's a guy that just broke my front window. I locked myself in the bathroom and he's trying to kick the door in. Did that take 24 hours? Or I'm just curious because I like seeing, I guess you could say like being in the middle and seeing both sides of the argument. Just because I mean I'm still 100% in support of, kind of like, oh, you guys want to complain about it? No problem. I don't live around there. Let it crumble. And if it comes to where I am fairly confident it won't. But if it does, I will stand by whatever needs to happen.
Sure. Sure.
But I just like, because I like, this is a very clickbait thing, right? Like, okay, is this a clickbait thing because the budget's coming up where it's like, you know what, they're going to say like, hey, guess what? We need to hire, 60 more officers for every shift. Is that what this clickbait is for? Or is it because, like people are actually waiting for something that, a police officer showing up and just being like, okay, fine, yeah, get your info, get the person's phone number because someone on Facebook called you a bitch, or is it something
Sure.
else, right? Like, is that what it is? Is it
Yeah.
when's the budget for the Toronto Police coming out, right? Is this
Well-
something that they
Well-
can take and say, hey, guess what? No, we need,
I can
I
pretty
need
much
more
guarantee
funding.
you
I
that
need to
they
put
do need more. I
cops on
mean, there was a
I'm not
mass layoff.
disagreeing that.
There was a mass layoff during BLM here too, and like all our police forces are all they're all like lacking in numbers. Cambridge has eight police officers for the entire Cambridge area for any given shift. Do you think that's enough? If anything actually
Probably
bad
not.
actually happened, no.
No.
And Toronto,
No
I'm
one's
sure is.
coming to save you.
So
Work out
that's what
more.
I mean.
Well, so and the other thing too, like you talk about defunding the police, but let's be realistic. We have a really big problem where
You're right.
you
We
know,
should set our sights bigger. Defund the whole government.
well, I mean, there is
Yes.
that element, but like the police are
Shit.
funded by the government, and it's not like the government are ever going to give taxes back or reduce taxes, right? So when I think of like defund the police, I'm like, I kind of don't want any government entity to have more power, just in general. I'm against that principle because I think that the government is just too involved at this point. But
Yes.
at the same time, I'm like, they're not going to, unless they actively decide to give tax dollars back to the people in the appropriate way, which would mean just like reduce your tax, just reduce it.
I'm willing to accept 9 mil, 30 out
Right.
6, 22 to 50 cases dropped off in equivalence.
Right, but I mean, the point is that if they're not willing to actually reduce your taxes, what benefit is defunding anyway? Right, like if they're not going to actually reduce your taxes,
So
because
we
at
need
this
to have a
point,
balanced budget argument before we can have a defund the police argument.
I think that that's just yes. But I mean, we already know
balances
that this
itself.
whole idea.
So
yeah.
we're back to my previous, like, just defund the entire thing. Just
Yeah.
abstain
Yeah.
from the government.
If there's no
Well-
government, then there's no one to give money to, and then we don't have
So-
to worry about this problem.
I actually believe that, government is important. And I do think that regardless, like you
How?
can be, no. I'm not saying our current government is important.
Okay.
I'm saying
Yeah.
government in terms
No,
of a
it has its
structure.
needs. Yeah, it has
Absolutely.
its uses for certain important things, like as
Well,
we discussed, border
Protecting
defense,
the border.
that
And
kind
like
of thing.
there's certain regulations that, like I'm all for, because there is certain people out there that are literally douchebags. And if they don't have boundaries that they have to operate within, there would be some seriously harmful situations that occur. So I do think that there has to be some sort of structure provided. I do think that we have an overstructuring right now. But on top of that, we have, like just so much investment and no real, like, we do live in a very good first world, but you constantly have to fight for a balance. And I think that we are on a bad pendulum swing,
Put it
and that's-
lightly, yes.
that's a bit of the problem, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. We
And
could
I
sit
don't
and
know
talk
if
about
it's
that for
done
days.
swinging backwards, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like until I see taxes actually start reducing, I'm not going to believe that the government is at all interested in the common person.
Why would the government ever want to reduce taxes?
Well, I don't think that they want to, but I think
Right,
that that's
so
but we
they're-
all know that that's the right thing to do. Right?
Yes,
You want to
but
talk
I also
about-
don't believe that this government is acting in the best interests of me or people like me because I don't tick the boxes that the government wants ticked.
Yeah, but I don't think that. But okay, so
And I should
Income
have more of
tax.
a say of
a great
those
example,
ticks.
income tax. It's non-discriminatory for the most part. Like you get taxed regardless of your DEI, right? Income
What's
tax
DEI?
does that. Diversity, equity, inclusion, right?
Oh, wow. I didn't
So-
need to learn that. I apologize.
It's okay. You did not need to learn that. So pretty much you, Andrew, and Dave do not qualify as that at all.
No.
So, but regardless, like, so income tax should just be dropped or slashed. Like, if you're gonna
Income tax should be dropped. Income tax was meant to be a
Absolutely.
temporary measure to fund a war that we shouldn't have been participating in.
But that's exactly what I'm saying though, right? Until I see stuff like that happen, and it has nothing to do with DEI, right? Like, I mean, the collection of it has nothing to do with it. So the refunding of it has nothing to do with it. So
And I mean, I have problems with like I got a raise, over the last few years and everything, and I just got another one. And even though I am making a significant amount more than what I used to, my take home has not changed because I have changed
Yeah.
tax brackets, which means I get taxed to a higher percentage, which means that prior to being held in contempt with guns for saying you owe me this, I'm not actually ahead more.
no, you're not. But a lot of people
Wait,
don't get
wait
that,
till you
right?
learn about how inflation is also stealing your money.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It just keeps getting worse, man.
It does.
Yeah, right. But so there's that fine line where I'm like, if you really like, I barely work overtime because there's a
What's the
point where I'm
point?
like, but yeah, exactly, right. Like if I work 10 hours overtime in both my weeks, I make an extra $80 on my check. But I'm like, I had to take 20 hours out of my personal life, whether it's spending it with family or doing this, doing that, it doesn't matter what, 20 hours to make an extra $100. But if I only work 2 extra hours a week, I mean, I make an extra 150, right? Well, I'll sacrifice 2 hours a week compared to 10 hours a week because there's that weird tax bracket where you get taxed differently. And I'm like, so I have issues with that. If you want to tax, you keep it, excuse me, it's this across the board, or you slash taxes completely, which I am way more in support than having a standardized across the board
Yeah.
tax.
Just defund the entire government.
I'm not.
Then how am I
against
going to
that.
file my taxes at the end of the year if we defund them?
It's a great question. Tune in next week to figure out how.
Do you know how you're gonna file your taxes? You're gonna go out onto the yard, you're gonna dump some gasoline on your taxes, and you're gonna light a match. That's how you're gonna do it.
I don't know. I feel like having actual physical, maybe this is going to be a slight derail, but maybe actual physical tax collectors. Like, I feel like if I
Yeah.
had somebody to tar and feather,
My grandpa was
Wh-
like the municipal tax collector when my mom was a kid.
Yeah, back when things were reasonable and nobody tarred him.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was actually a very respected man because he, dealt with people very reasonably, right? Because
Yeah.
it was like,
yeah, because
and
he was
here's
probably
my
treating them like
thing.
individual people rather than just like
Yeah.
the government treating them
The
like
number
some
or
impersonal
this or-
number.
yeah.
But that was also like, municipal, local taxes. And I'm not opposed to that because that's how, your roads get fixed. That's how, the people that do
That's one way to
manage
fix
some
the
of
roads,
your,
I guess.
yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
so historically, if it wasn't taxed, then it was like the landowner would be responsible for maintaining all that stuff.
Well,
Right?
guess what? Government owns that land, so they figure it out without taking my
Yeah.
goddamn fucking money.
Even they're not gonna do that. So, but this is what I'm saying. I really don't have that much of a problem with like municipal and small government, like limited taxation, obviously, right? It's a collective thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I want all of my money going into a community center that like provides services.
This is predicated on the people in charge of this limited government working in your best interest or the best
Yeah.
interest of that community.
Yeah.
And I don't trust the people in
That's
this
why it doesn't
government
work
to
in a
work
democracy. It only works in a republic,
It's true.
for starters.
Yeah.
For
It's true.
starters.
I think we're going to have the form of government conversation next week.
I'm down
Ooh.
for it.
Ooh, I'm gonna start writing show notes now.
All right,
I know, I was
I
like,
will
I'm
go
gonna
back
do
and find the
research.
old episode about this because we've done this once or twice before. I know for sure we did it once because
Is what's her name
Jewel from
coming back? Where she's
Slamfire
queen
Radio
of,
was on.
yeah.
Who was?
Is she
The
gonna be
effing queen of everything.
Yeah,
What?
she was on, and then she said you can pick whatever country you want to be in charge of. Yeah, I remember that episode. I listened to the whole backlog. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. All right, let's go around the room. We'll start with Liz. Where can everybody find you if they want to find out your ideas for limited taxation?
Oh, you pretty much have to find me in real life, or you have to listen to the podcast to talk about that shit. But if you want the watered down version of Liz, you just find me on social media, at the Rebel Wanderer on Instagram or Facebook, which I'm never on. I don't really go on the Gilded app but I'm technically on it. So I will go back and be a little bit more active on social media though. If you start trolling CSIS, I will be present for that. So that's how you can get in touch with me. You can also follow my gym's social media link, which is the Basement Gym. So you could do that. Bunch of people just trying to be better at, health and shit.
Wrestling.
Jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu, weightlifting. Hey, you know what? My most active class is a bunch of people over 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's when people realize, oh shit, I should have done this fucking years ago.
My oldest client is 86. So
Toss your ass to the mat, Pierre.
not quite.
Yeah,
I don't
like-
teach them jujitsu, but I did have her up on the punching bag. She was punching the bag.
There you go, buddy. Like,
Punch your
Yeah.
lights out.
Oh.
yeah, go
It's
for
my
it. I'm
grandma,
not
so
swinging
for
back.
sure she could
Oh,
do
yeah.
it.
Does she have the same height genes as you?
Yeah, she does.
Yeah,
Swear to
fuck
get
that.
it.
I'm not touching it.
Yeah, dude, you're like out of your league. You are out of your league.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So,
In case anybody's wondering, in case the listeners are wondering, I'm 6 feet tall. Doesn't quite
Yes.
look like that from the screen.
no, it
No,
doesn't. 'cause
the
when she
camera
ended
had
up
6
on-
inches. or
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh,
How many cameras are on you?
me?
What?
What? Anyways, moving on. Dave, you're up. I'm gonna nominate somebody.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you can find me on the grams at Diesel6223. Find me doing all my shooting happenings and whatnotty and fishing and outdoorsiness and whatnot. Yeah, or find me on the range. Hopefully it'll be a good summer. Got a lot of exciting plans. I hope that they come to fruition. Kind of working on things right now. Pierre.
Off the wall customizing. Instagram, Tickety Talk at Gmail.
Tickety
Probably
talk.
won't do it. Yeah. I don't know.
It's
I'm
a
not in
great place
charge
to
of
buy a
all this.
t-shirt, Dave. You should check it out. Follow them.
Yes, it
Also-
is a
They
great
are.
place.
It's also a great way to pick up a Chinese tail.
Yes. But yes, you can find me on Instagram somewhere. You got to do the digging and figure it out. But hopefully this summer you will find me on one of those ranges with Dave.
Ooh.
Yes.
Choose
If you've
long guns.
If you've listened
Yes.
to the show this long, I owe you a discount code. If you're shopping at Ragnarok Tactical, you should use discount code Patriot at checkout. Also, I haven't changed the shipping rates, but I really need to do that because the new Canada Post rates suck.
Yes, they do.
You've said that for like a month and a bit now.
You just do it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really should
Yeah.
do that. Yeah,
Because if
but
you're
I
kind
have-
of losing money, it defeats the purpose.
Trust me,
maybe
shipping.
I'm just
you'll
doing it for the
never make
betterment of
money.
my community.
That goes totally against the contempt. So I don't believe you.
I mean, that's fair.
I don't believe you.
That's fair. If you want me to yell at you in person, come to an Ontario Rifle Association event, and I will demean you publicly for doing something you should know better than to have done.
True. It's fair.
I have to apologize to Ruggill Tackle. We couldn't get Rod on the show this evening. We had planned to talk more about gun stuff, but then we got the contempt for the horse police instead.
Pretty sure he's probably at SHOT, no? SHOT show starts this week,
Believe
right?
it or not, certain firearms advocacy organizations are not welcome at SHOT Show for having violated certain rules and conditions of events in the past.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm. That would explain why I
Oh.
haven't seen her there past 2 times I've been there.
how do you get in on going? I want to go just to say that I've done it.
You can get in
Uh,
because with us, Ragnarok, you have to be a
in
vendor.
the industry. You have to be a vendor.
I want
So
or
I'm
me-
gonna
or
have to
media.
hire Liz.
Administration. I'll be your paperwork lady.
That's right. We're going to hire Liz to do HR, and I will
Yes.
be in meetings constantly about my behavior and passing and
when your joke
performance
is so good that HR wants to hear it after lunch.
You would be amazed
right,
how
off the
often I've
record.
had to explain the jokes.
No, I'm not amazed. I've heard your jokes.
So is the HR lady.
I watch him
All of
work when
our
I come home. He
listeners-
tells people to fuck off all the time.
It's true.
Wow.
I have a very broad vocabulary, but I refuse to use it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Bare minimum to get it done.
Fair enough.
For all of our
Goodness.
listeners out there in podcast land, I'd like to remind you that you are a small fringe minority with unacceptable views.